James Walkinshaw is a member of the House Oversight Committee, Democrat from Virginia, with us live now. Welcome to The Story Is for the first time.
Thanks for having me.
Your colleagues, Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat, Thomas Massie, Republican, believe that Attorney General Pam Bondi is not disclosing what is required by law passed by Congress. They're now considering holding her in contempt. That's rarely done on the Hill. Would you support that?
I would, if the Department of Justice doesn't come into compliance with the law. Look, they were violating the law on Friday when they failed to release the full files. They're violating the law on Saturday, Sunday. Today's Monday. If they continue to violate the law and when Congress returns in January, I think that's something we absolutely have to pursue. And it's important to note that in the House of Representatives, both inherent contempt and impeachment are privileged motions, which means Speaker Johnson would not be able to prevent a vote on the floor for either of those measures. So if I were a Republican member of Congress close to the White House, which I'm not, but if I were, I would be calling the White House, urging them to ensure the Department of Justice comes into compliance with the law. Otherwise, they'll be facing a very uncomfortable vote in January.
I mean, speaking to your Republican colleagues, are there the votes for either of those things, contempt or impeachment, which is an even higher level?
Well, look, the legislation to release the files passed essentially unanimously in the House of Representatives. I would expect that once again, Republican members of Congress won't want to put Donald Trump's cover-up ahead and above the survivors that we're hearing from who are frustrated and outraged by the Department of Justice's failure to comply with the law. So I think there would be bipartisan support for that. I think Republicans will want to avoid having to take that vote. And I hope they'll avoid it by coming out publicly and urging the White House to come into compliance with the law as quickly as possible.
Meanwhile, the DOJ facing more scrutiny after several files were taken down, re-uploaded with additional redactions. The DOJ says, quote, photos and other materials will continue being reviewed and redacted consistent with the law in an abundance of caution as we receive additional information. Do you trust the department to make proper and legal redactions? For so many years, the Department of Justice was seen really as apolitical. The administrations would not give them direction. Do you feel like that's what's happening now?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge that there are still, of course, hundreds of honorable patriots working at the Department of Justice and the FBI and other federal law enforcement agencies. I wouldn't put the leadership of those departments or agencies in that category right now. So the answer is no, I don't trust the public statements being made by the Department of Justice. Oversight Committee Democrats have set up a whistleblower tip line, and we're urging anyone within the DOJ or the FBI who's been working hard to try to get full transparency around these files and has seen that work thwarted for whatever the motive is that the Trump administration seems to have here, to come forward and blow the whistle. And whistleblowers have legal protection under the law.
I mean, what do you think is a fair punishment if basically they don't do the right thing and don't follow the law? I mean, what makes the most sense to you?
Well, I think the most effective punishment for a member of the executive branch who's openly defying a law passed by Congress and signed into law by the President of the United States is probably inherent contempt with daily fines for each day that they're not in compliance with the law. Impeachment would be a higher bar and probably a more difficult bar to cross. But I think inherent contempt with daily fines until the law is complied with is probably the most effective tool that Congress has.
What do you make of what Bill Clinton said in all this? Basically, let's put it all out there. I got nothing to hide. Basically here, we call on President Trump to direct Attorney General Bondi to immediately release any remaining materials referring to, mentioning, or containing a photograph of Bill Clinton. That seems to be what you do when you feel like you are innocent, not what you do when you're trying to hide something.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I wish that Donald Trump had been taking the same posture over the course of this year, but he spent the year doing everything in his power, continuing up until this moment, seemingly, to prevent these files from getting out. And we don't know exactly why that is, but I've become convinced over the course of the year that there is some very specific reason that Donald Trump doesn't want the world to see what's in these files. And we might not find out today or tomorrow or next week, but ultimately we will find out why Donald Trump doesn't want us to see the files.
Congressman, thank you for sharing your views. Happy holidays to you and your family.